I want to pose the question, is Canada as a country essentially committing genocide on its own disabled people? A disabled person in Canada should have the right to die 100%. However, they should not have the right to die until their physical, mental, or therapeutic needs have been met. They are potentially making the decision because their needs have not been met, and that's what needs to stop.
All right, Mitch, you recently sent me a very compelling letter, and you've said that for some disabled Canadians, suicide or medical assistance in dying can feel like the only way out. Can you just take us into the moment that you first started to understand why that might be true for you?
I think it's just understanding the reality of living with a disability in our country. Our governments do a very good job at the smoke and mirrors effect, where we make our citizens believe that we take care of the most vulnerable, when in fact we do not. Most people living with disabilities who are on disability supports receive $1,000 or less after paying rent every month, and they're expected to survive. So I think when I started to realize all this was really back to when I was a child, to be honest, guys. And the fact is, I mean, I watched my parents spend thousands of dollars on equipment, on my disability, on my needs, on all this stuff, just to watch them go into debt, over the years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of things that were not covered by the government. And so, as I got older, started to realize that, hey, if I can't make it, what is my end game? What is my destiny? What's going to happen to me? And as my medical condition started to deteriorate, my ability to work started to go down, my ability to access education was not there. It seems like, well, am I either going to live on less than the poverty line, or should I just die?
For folks that are unaware, what do you live with? What is the disability you've been living with your entire life? And maybe give us a little bit of like a background into how that's kind of affected the way that you've been spending your time here on this planet since you've been born.
Yeah, I have cerebral palsy, spastic quadriplegia. So my mom, unfortunately, she had placenta previa. It's a condition where the mother's placenta rises and basically cut off my oxygen supply, which then caused damage to my brain. I'm lucky that it damaged the motor function part of my brain and not the intellectual part, because there are some people with cerebral palsy that have both physical and developmental challenges. So I'm lucky in that sense. But yeah, my disability and my ailments are from birth.
Did you say placenta previa?
That's correct.
Sounds like a fancy perfume.
Yeah,
it kind of
perfume.
Yeah.
The scent of the scent of the placenta. Mitch, like on that note, like I through having had the opportunity to speak to lots of people with lots of disabilities and other people with cerebral palsy, I get the sense that that maybe the average person is under the illusion that people that when you have cerebral palsy, that everybody with cerebral palsy has an intellectual disability. Is that something that tracks with your experience? And like, does that, and if it does, like, do you feel like you're just like, just always having to like contradict?
Yeah. What does that look like? Like, how, like, does that, what have people said to you? Like, I'm just imagining that there's like, you have had experiences where someone says something to you and you go, what the
It reminds me of the Mike Tyson video with Hasbulla. You guys know Hasbulla?
Oh,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
when
that
he-
was so
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
When he gives them the little kisses.
Yeah, Hasbulla is like a 30-year-old or
And then,
25-year-old.
and then it's not until after
man.
the interview that someone's like, he's 18.
And Mike Tyson thinks he's a baby, and so he's like rubbing his head and playing with him. It's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, have you faced that? What's like day to day in terms of the way that people have perceived you because of your visibly disabled? Do they make assumptions like that?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, we'll get into it, but I actually, I faced that, and I don't think it's their fault. I
Mhm.
think we do a really poor job at educating our young, right? Educating our kids in society on what disability is and what it looks like and what it actually is in reality. And in fact, because we fail to educate them, it means that we also fail to educate adults, because those kids become adults and they were not educated, which means that their kids were not educated, right? So what I face a lot of the time is like people will belittle me, right? They'll talk to me in like a tone of voice which is like, "Hey, how are you, hon? It's so nice to see you." Like they'll talk to me in like that pitched voice as if I was a child, you know?
Mm.
Or a good example is if you and if all of us went out to eat dinner, right? There would be a high chance that they might, whoever's serving us might ask you, "What do I want to eat?" Right?
Right,
Or what does
right.
he want to order? Right?
They would congratulate
they'll-
us for taking you out, being like, "Wow, guys, good
Mm,
on
right.
you for taking little buddy out with you, huh?"
And again, it comes down to a lack of education, right?
Yeah.
It's that's all it is. And so those are some of my experiences when it comes to like kind of being treated in society.
Do you remember the first experience that you had that you went, "Oh wow, I feel othered because of my disability"?
I would say like as young as like school, of course, because the school system was like the first thing that really set me up to fail, right? Like I think what has done me wrong, or the biggest challenge that I had, was if we look back to my school age, I grew up in a small town. It's called Keswick, Ontario. Very small town, hick town, you could say. Very close knit, but classic small town Ontario.
Too close knit, maybe.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone knows everyone, right? Everyone knows everyone, but that's just how it is. But when I was in school, the education system always took the easiest route, right? So not what would benefit Mitch the most, but what was easiest for them. So what they did was they had an educational assistant. I'm sure you guys have heard of EAs and CYWs before, people that assist, kids in school, right? And they literally followed me around for, 6, 7 hours a day, as long as I was at school, every day. They went to all my classes, they took me to the washroom, they helped me, my lunch and all this stuff. Now, what that did was, rather than teaching me how to do things independently, they did everything for me. So they wrote all my assignments, they wrote all my papers, they read me all my, readings. They did everything for me. Intellectually, I still had to do the work, but physically they did everything for me, which only further handicapped me, because
Mhm.
that's not how it works in the real world, boys. Like, you don't have someone following you around helping you with everything. One. Two, that made me feel ostracized, because essentially what it was doing was telling me that I was different, but also telling my other peers, "Hey, he's different. He has a teacher following him everywhere. There's someone helping him with all his work and has to physically help him," right? Rather than taking the time to teach me how to physically write, for example, they just told my parents, "No, we're going to give him an EA and they're going to help him and it's going to be fine and we're going to get him on the computer using his voice and all this stuff." So again, Rather than doing what was hard, but what was the right thing, they did the easy thing, which only made me essentially more disabled.
And Mitch, did you feel like is this looking back in hindsight that you're like, oh shit, I really didn't develop and learn those skills because I didn't have the opportunity to? And did they like involve you and your family in any of those decisions to like have somebody follow you around at school?
Hey, but they just told my parents this is how it should be. This is what's easiest for him. This is what's going to make him learn most effectively. And I don't blame my parents at all. They're great people. They did everything for me. They wanted me to succeed in life, and they've taught me how to be tough on the outside and somewhat soft on the inside sometimes. But, like, I don't blame them. I mean, they just listen to the professionals, right, at the end of the day. But that really foreshadowed the rest of my life and where I am today, right? Because that failure of the education system only set me up to fail in adulthood. And it shows how when you're not, taught what you need to be taught, it means that you don't know how to survive. Like, nobody had the forethought of like, hey, what's going to happen to Mitch when he grows up? What is his life going to look like? What challenges is he going to face? And how is he going to live? No one cared. Right?
I would have never thought of it this way until having this conversation, Mitch. So thank you. But it ends up being, after hearing you say that, like, it is such an odd approach from the education system, in the sense that, like, I've got 2 young kids now, and I feel like I'm always thinking about, like, how can I give you what you need, but like really nothing more, so that you can learn how to do things on your own. Like that's the important thing, is that, like, you need me right now. Like, you're 3 years old. There's tons of stuff that you just cannot do. And I need to help you understand how to navigate this situation with some independence at the level that you are able to do that. And it's odd that regardless of the scenario or circumstance of someone's physical or intellectual capabilities, that we don't kind of like apply that same logic of going like, how much does Mitch need? And how can I give him what he needs, but not over give and take away the independence that, again, like you said, like, you want to imbue you with, you would want you to be able to find independence in the way that you're able to.
Mitch, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26. Do you think that, the way that you were brought up and the way that the education system sort of treated you, do you think that that's still happening today across the country? Or do you think that there's been a bit of a shift?
No, I can promise you that it is, because I'm lucky enough to still be in touch with, like, my grade 12 English teacher, for example, right? Like, she was the one to, empower me to, like, use my voice and learn how to advocate for myself and use my skill of writing and communication, because that was an equal playing field, right? When you write something, no one knows you're disabled, right? They just see words on a paper. So we're all equal. So that was like my superpower, and she really helped me learn that. Shout out to Karen Simpson. But I'm just gonna say, like, going back to what you were just saying, is I really believe the reason why, like, they kind of didn't give me what I needed or wanted was because we need to look at what is the socially acceptable outcome for someone in my scenario by society. So society says that Mitch is most likely going to live with his parents until they die, right? And his parents are going to take care of him. Or Mitch is going to end up in some type of assisted living facility where his needs are going to be met. So because that is the perceived destiny of Mitch and people like Mitch, then therefore we are giving him what he, what we expect him to have, because that's all society says he's going to do.
Because why go through this? Like, why go through the, try to imbue independence when Mitch's outcome isn't going to be independence?
Right.
It's going to be.
Someone will always be there for him.
Yeah.
Something will always be there to catch him.
Yeah. Which is crazy, because that's also very not true.
Yes. Which is a big part of what we'll be getting into today, and how this all kind of ties back to MAiD. But before we get into that, Mitch, I'm curious, like, about how, so obviously the education system sort of set you up to fail, from a standpoint of having a sense of independence, or an ability to kind of live on your own, or live with a sense of independence. What about, like, socially? Coming from a small town, what did relationships and friendships look like for you as you were coming of age? And how did that play out in terms of the way that you, or either taught or thought or spoke about, things like intimacy and like romantic relationships?
That's interesting. So let's just talk about, just friendships for a moment. So friendships were always interesting, because my fellow classmates, or kids, would, I guess they would always say hi to me in school, or there'd be like a group of them that would always make sure they would come and give me high fives, or dab me up, or whatever you want to say, right? But they never wanted to be around me in school, because that meant that they were around a teacher. And why does a kid want to be around a teacher, right? And so that's one. And then two, I mean, I think that because a lot of times we struggle to find common things that I could physically do with my classmates and my peers, like, let's say they wanted to skateboard, or let's say they wanted to play sports, or even play video games was tough for me because of my physical ailments, right? And stuff like that. So I think that kind of drew us up, like, even further apart, because I strongly believe that there were some people that wanted to connect with me, but just didn't know how. And also, like, were afraid of kind of asking me the tough questions or hard questions of, like, hey, do you mind if I ask you, like, why you're in a wheelchair, or like, what are your challenges, or like, do you have an intellectual disability, like, all these things that are taboo, right? That the school didn't address, because again, in society, we teach people, like, don't be rude, don't be like inconsiderate, like, don't stare, don't ask too many questions. Whereas with me, I'm the opposite. It's like, ask me anything you need to ask me, like, even if it's like the weirdest thing that you can think of, right? Like, I always remember, like, in high school, it's like the three biggest things that people wanted to know was, could I drink, could I have sex, and can I do drugs, right?
Well, let's start with all three of those. Can you drink?
Yes, that's a yes to all three, right? But don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. It's not good for you. It's not advisable.
Don't do every drug.
Did you ever make
just any drug?
Did you ever make jokes, or like tell people, like, like this, like, I was normal before I did drugs, and now I'm up.
This is what weed does.
Yeah, this is what weed does.
I used to tell people I got to do a bear fight, and now I'm in a wheelchair,
That's and the bear, and now I'm like this.
And he made me smoke weed.
Yeah. I mean, so to bring things back to the relationship aspect, and because, like, so from the standpoint of, like, how relationships are one of these things that we can, like, utilize as as a sort of safety net to fall back into when we're having like a rough go. I'm curious to know from your perspective, like having like a romantic partner, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever.
A friend.
Was that something? Was that something that you ever like that you felt like, oh, that's kind of out of reach for me, or like what did that look like for you in terms of trying to find that, and were you able to?
Thanks for the question, and I'm going to answer extremely honestly, and your editors can do with what they wish.
Well, I'm the editor, so I'll do whatever the fuck I want with it. Yeah.
Jared really wants to talk about,
make it sound really weird.
Jared really wants to talk about banging. So as graphic as you can paint the picture of whatever, we're down.
Yeah. No. So I would say that in my experience, whether it is relationship, whether it is caregiving, whether it is therapy, money equals connection. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a physical ailment, such as myself, if you have financial resources, you can have whatever it is that you're looking for in all aspects of your needs as someone with a disability. Why? Because it's too difficult to access things other ways, because you have all these challenges, because society is uneducated. There's a lack of understanding from other people, right? It's hard to put yourself out there, right? So basically, I am someone that, if I want to have my needs met, it's just like any other service, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a service, and you need to treat it as such. And it's the same as going to a chiropractor. It's the same as going to the physiotherapist, right? It's just another expense for me, and that's sad to say, but yeah, that's the honest truth. There are there are some countries though that will, some Scandinavian countries that will actually, their government will pay for their medically disabled or medically ill to get laid.
Mm-hmm.
So Canada, let's shoot it up. I don't know.
It's always
why are you
Scandinavia.
still here?
It's always Scandinavia. It's always Scandinavia.
They get
I
it.
mean,
yeah.
like for you, for yourself, and the reason why I brought this up is it's not because I want to know. Like, obviously, I know that people with disabilities have sex, and
Totally,
I also know that a lot of people in your position have to rely on sex work in order to be in a position to experience that. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because intimacy and physical touch and physical connection in that way, regardless of whether or not it's with someone that you love and that you are going to spend the rest of your life with, or if it's a complete stranger, those are an aspect of being a human, and that type of connection, that type of touch, that type of somatic experience is so vitally important to the human experience. And so I asked, and I sort of made the assumption. I thought that was likely the answer you were going to give. Something that I've never actually had a chance to ask someone in your position is the process of being able to find that, right? So you said in Scandinavia they'll pay for it, and so there's probably like a service you can go to, and it's pretty easy. In here in Canada, I mean, if you wanted to hire a sex worker to have sex with, it's not the most straightforward thing. So
yeah, how do you find them?
What did that look
Where
like for you in terms of being able to find the resource or the access to have your needs met? Was that challenging? Like, did you have to sort of ask around? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say that is a process. There's certain places where you can find that, especially like obviously online.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty obvious, but I would say the biggest challenge with that is just safety, right? Because you are a vulnerable person. Like I am a vulnerable person, or anyone with a disability is vulnerable in to a certain extent, and so it can be quite nerve-wracking, right? You may have done this a certain number of times, but it's still nerve-wracking when you're like, okay, I'm gonna meet someone new, and I don't know them, and they don't know me, and here's this expectation, and who knows what's gonna happen? Do I have a safety plan? Do I have someone I can call? Does someone know what's going on? Right? All these things I have to think of that maybe able-bodied people have to think of, but not into the extent that I have to. And I also have to be extremely forward, right? When I would reach out to when I would reach out to someone, I'll say, "Hey, this is my situation. This is how old I am, but just so you know, like I'm in a wheelchair. And are you okay with that? And are you okay with lifting me? And are you okay with, and let's be frank, some people will say yes and some people will say no, and you have to be okay with that, right? And that's totally cool. That's totally fine. But yeah, it's definitely a whole different world out there.
And for you, like in that situation, do you? I mean, like we don't have to go super into detail, but maybe the first few times that you experienced that, like how was it? How did it feel? I mean, did it feel? Were you able to find the joy in it, or was the joy stripped away because you felt like you were put in a position where you had to do it a lot differently than, say, an able-bodied person?
No, I would say I would say that the experience itself, I want to presume, is similar towards my able-bodied friends or people like you. I would say there's a moment afterwards when you pay for a service and then you realize what you just did. So you have this moment of clarity or realization of like, damn, I just paid $700 for 3 hours of time, and now this person is gone, right? And if I want that again, I have to find a way to get another $700 because that's the only way I can have that. And I can't even believe I'm talking about this right now, but I'm doing it because it needs to be talked about.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I also think that there's something to be said for post-nut clarity exists on, across the board, regardless of whether or not you pay for it. So I get it,
post-nut clarity is
a
a phenomenon that we're well aware of.
But I think a lot of guys would probably be like, damn, I paid for 3 hours and I really only needed 15 minutes.
I really appreciate your honesty and your frankness there, because I think this is one of those things that does not get talked about
1,000%. Yeah.
And I really value your willingness to be vulnerable and open in talking about that. So thank you.
Yeah. What I would say though is like, the pain management of it, like, there's no comparison to any other drug than what happens during intimacy, like your endorphins, your oxytocin, like all that stuff, like there's no physical pain, right? And it just makes, like, I want to say one thing is people don't understand what as someone who has chronic pain, chronic medical condition, like nobody knows what you will do to not be in pain, right? Like how far will you go to not feel that anymore? And
I wanted to ask too, because like you've talked, it sounds like you've thought a lot about, what could have been different or what might have been better for you in your childhood that could have led to a better outcome. And I'm curious what those things are. Like you've talked about how, the ingredients could have been better for like social interaction, or, maybe if there wasn't a teacher around you all the time. But like, what are some of the other things that you think like could be done in this case to lead to better outcomes?
I think it really starts with making it public that, hey, just because you're in a wheelchair or you have some sort of disability doesn't mean that you're not quote unquote normal, whatever normal means, because
Yeah.
I don't know what normal is, and I don't think any of us do. I hate that word actually, but society always has these norms, right? So I think what really needs to happen is like there just needs to somehow be more of a conversation, and there needs to be some social change, and ideologies need to change among society um, in order to kind of change the narrative here for people living with lifelong challenges, such as myself.
It seems to me like something that the education system or a lot of maybe disability supports could probably do better at, based on what I'm hearing from you, Mitch, is being able to adopt a bit more of a personalized approach to the individual that somebody's working with, to being like, okay, you've got cerebral palsy and I'm your EA in school. Like, what are given the struggles, the physical challenges that you have, like, what are the things that you would like to be able to do more independently that you're not doing right now? And like, how can I be an aid to that, to achieve that goal?
Yeah, I get you. I get you. And I'll just say, like, you know, I'm not going to say that that doesn't happen to an extent. It depends on the staff. It depends on how motivated that staff is. I had some great support staff in my day, but really it all comes down to like how the system works and what the limitations really are and what the expectation is. What is the end game, right? Because they never expected me to go to post-secondary, or my post-secondary experience was very, very interesting, right? Like, so here I am for the last like 12 years of school, had this support person follow me around everywhere. And then I decide I want to go to journalism school, and so I go to school, and now it's like, okay, Mitch, well, that doesn't exist in post-secondary anymore, right? That's not there for you. There's not someone there for you to help you do your work and help you write your papers and write everything for you. And yeah, we can have someone give you their notes, but like, good luck if you want to write anything down, or good luck if you want help writing out your assignment. Like, that just doesn't exist, right? Um, to a certain extent. And so I was like left with like, I didn't have any skills on how to do this on my own. And here I am in the biggest like polytechnic college in, the area. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I went to Humber College in Toronto, by the way, but yeah, like, I have no idea. I felt like a school-age child in a post-secondary institution because I legitimately did not have the skills to do it independently.
Which goes back to like what society expects your likely outcome to be, because that's what they're doing for everybody else in school. Like, that's basically what school is like progressively preparing you to do shit on your own, because when you go to university or you go into the job market, like, no one's going to hold your hand. So like, you got to be able to do that. But the expectation that you won't do those things because you have cerebral palsy is then like, well, then we just won't do that for Mitch.
Right. That's it. Yeah. And it all comes down to money. Like, anyone that's telling you it's not about money, they're lying to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It all comes down to money and resources.
And like, for somebody who has, the financial resources, are there options for them in post-secondary to, go and spend a bunch of money on like, I don't know, a personal assistant or tutor or something?
Yes, totally. So like, I had a great tutor or assistant that I used. She was a final year student of the program, and she was extremely intelligent. Her name is Brittany Belittled. She's now a reporter for CBC Toronto. And she was my assistant for a year, basically, and I met with her like 20 to 25 hours a week, and whatever the cost was, like, that wasn't covered, right? Only so many hours were covered by the school themselves. So, I mean, if I needed that assistance, it's like, well, I got to find a way to get it, right?
Yeah.
But even moreover, something that is very interesting, I essentially, politely got told by my school to remove myself from the program because I couldn't access the curriculum. So there were classes, at least 1 to 2 classes per semester that were at like a 7 a.m. time frame, 7:30, 7 a.m., because the professor still works in the industry and they're teaching before they go to work. And obviously, I couldn't get to the class because I need a caregiver to get me up in the morning. I was living in the dorm and I need a caregiver for like 2 or 3 hours in the morning before I get up. And who am I going to find to come to me at 4 in the morning to get me up? Nobody, right? There's no chance. And I need to do this lab in person because it is, learning how to edit, learning how to use these softwares that you use in journalism. And there's licensing issues, and they couldn't give it to me on my own device. So because I couldn't make the class means that I wasn't going to finish the program, meaning that's why I dropped out of school.
Whoa.
Oh, so it did force you out of school.
That seems so crazy
It's so
to
wild,
me because
there's an answer there.
Totally.
Like,
it's like how willing
that exists.
How willing are you
Just
to
think outside the box
to
for a minute, you know, and like you can find it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, again, it just goes to show how little effort like the various institutions across the nation are willing to put in to make life livable for people with disabilities like yourself, Mitch. And again, one of the reasons why some people in your position are like, well, I guess I'll just sign up for medical assistance in dying because that's easy. And that's essentially what I feel like I'm being told I should do.
And they'll cover that.
They figured that one out.
when you told you that that's the only option, like that you might want to, in a polite way, drop out of the program and give up on the goal that you're pursuing, what ended up happening?
So I want to be very clear. I do not give any blame to any staff that work at the institution or that tried to support me throughout the time. It was a bureaucratic
You can tell us once the mic's over. You can
Mitch.
tell us. We'll write it down. We'll write it down in a blog and put it out. Don't worry.
for sure. But no, it was a bureaucratic issue of
who was the bureaucrat, Mitch? Who was the bureaucrat?
the company that made the software, like the software provider, did not want to provide a private license to the software, and it was only allowed to be used on the school's devices within that facility, because then I would have their software on my personal device, and that was a major issue. But yeah, it did lead to me actually dropping out of the program.
Fuck.
It did lead to me dropping out of the program, and then I proceeded to try to work at many jobs, including Apple, including, the bank, even Capital One and a call center. And yeah, I experienced scheduling issues there. I experienced discrimination as far as trying to get more hours, trying to advance in the company. And all of this is going on while my body, can't handle working full time, but I'm trying to work, so I'm not on disability. Because, as soon as I make 15,000 or more in the year, my disability gets clawed back dollar for dollar as soon as you make over 15 grand, right? So it's either you're working or you're not, right? And at a certain point, my body just gave out. I remember this day, I was at the call center at Capital One, and I fell onto my desk. Like, my body just fell forward. And I had to ask one of my colleagues, it was the most humiliating moment. I had to be like, hey, dude, I know I'm lying on my desk right now, but I can't move. Can you please, just grab my shoulders and just pull me back into my chair, and then I can sit up again, because my muscles have given out. And I went home that day, boys. I went home that day, and I think that was the last time I showed up to work there, because I was just like, that was a sign to me that, hey, your body is telling you can't do this anymore, right? And of course, you're navigating the system, you're going off on short-term disability, you're going back to work, and at one point you just have to realize, like, you can't do this, right? Like, you just have to accept the reality, accept defeat.
What in those moments of defeat, like, and I'm sure that you've had countless moments like that throughout your life. And again, all a lot of that based on the fact that society has not created the foundation needed to support what someone like yourself needs to get by day to day. When you're in that moment of defeat, what do you do? What, like, do you have coping mechanisms or tools at your disposal in order to get through that moment, that, like, from a mental
It's
health
dangerous.
perspective?
Drinking,
Yeah.
sex, and drugs.
Yeah, right. Sex with bears
Yeah.
and drinking and all the drugs.
No. Yeah. No, it's dangerous, right? Because the system, the way it's designed is, I was first given opioids when I was 14 years old. And so the way the system is designed is that when you have chronic pain, when you have these issues, we don't actually give you treatment or like ongoing therapy, but the system automatically prescribes you medication. So I went through like a 3-year period, you know, um, I went through like a 3-year period where I was addicted to fentanyl. I was addicted to Dilaudid. I was on all the pills. I was taking 4 times the amount of drugs that I should. And then I finally go to the doctor and I admit to the doctor, hey, I'm actually an addict and I'm addicted to this because of my pain, and this is all the system is giving me. In that moment, he should be able to give me the therapy I need, physical and mental. But instead, they have to take the medication away from me because now I admit to them that I have a substance issue. And that substance issue is due to the lack of support, it's due to the lack of therapy. So we'd rather give people addictive substances than provide them the care and the therapy that they need to manage their condition. Why? Because it's cheaper to give you a pill than it is for us to pay, $150 an hour for you to get massage or chiro or physio or whatever therapy you need, right? So the system got me addicted to that. And so again, it's, leads you down that path, right?
Yeah.
And when you say cheaper, like it's cheaper to give you that pill, I know what you mean. It's like the calculation they're doing on the back of the napkin of like, hey, this pill costs this much and those therapies cost this much, so pills are cheaper than these therapies. But in actuality, like the long-term benefit, likely of providing you with the actual therapy that you need will hopefully not even mean that you have to take these pills or continue to be
Yes.
addicted to these drugs.
Yes. But again, people don't realize, as soon as I tell a random person on the street that, they assume that people get that therapy. They assume that you get the care. Most people in this country get 4 to 6 hours a day worth of caregiving support. So you're telling me, like, a caregiver has to come for 2 hours a day, twice a day, or 3 times a day? Good luck finding someone to do that.
You were willing to go as far as signing up for MAiD, and you found yourself in a position where you were literally laying in a bed with an IV in your arm, ready to go. How did you find yourself in that position? And what led
Luckily,
to that?
I was still sitting up. If I was gonna die, I was gonna die in my chair because it was like a symbolic thing. It's like, this is the thing that like it's part of me in a way, or society makes it part of me, and so I was gonna die in my chair. But I want to say one thing here. There are gonna be people, and I know we're coming up on time, but it's really important. There are gonna be people that say, "Oh, how dare he say that MAiD is bad," or "How dare he say that MAiD is not allowed for people with disabilities." I want to be equivocally clear and unapologetically clear to the point where I will say a disabled person in Canada should have the right to die 100%. However, they should not have the right to die until their physical, mental, or therapeutic needs have been met, because then they are not making the decision based on their needs being met. They are potentially making the decision because their needs have not been met, and that's what needs to stop. I just saw an article from Pierre Polyev that said they will not change the current MAiD legislation. And I want to say that right now, I want to pose the question, is Canada as a country essentially committing genocide on its own disabled people? Because if they knowingly are not providing the right support, and they're knowingly doing it because there's countless interviews, there's countless articles where politicians admit, hey, we're not doing enough. So they know what's going on, right? So if they know and they're still allowing it to happen, how is it not genocide?
I mean, it's like it's like, if you go to a physician and they're like, you're I'm in chronic pain and I've got this is the thing that I'm dealing with, and the massage and the physio and the care support and is not on the table.
It's like stuff that works.
Like this stuff is not on the table in terms of what this country can cover for you, but these opioids are, and also dying is. I mean,
it's backwards.
It seems
like
crazy,
the gap between those, which is all of the support that you need to feel like you can live. Like it, yeah. I can't remember when it was. A couple of years ago, we had this conversation when the MAiD legislation changed, and we had a prof from, I think, the University of Alberta kind of like walk us through this sort of gap that is in this legislation, where Canada essentially gets to go, hey, we'll subsidize your death, but we won't subsidize your care. And that was like one of the most eye-opening moments.
And at that point, that conversation, it was like, this is looking like it's going to be a slippery slope. And so I mean, we're now at the fucking bottom of that slope. Like, we slipped all the way down, and that's the situation we actually find ourselves in today. And to your point of not wanting to sound, not wanting to like alarm people or give people the sort of heads up, dude, we are 100% in the same camp as you. I think MAiD is something that is of value, and I think it is something that is important for people who need it. But and I'm speaking for all three of us here, we most certainly do not agree with the fact that MAiD can be used as an excuse to allow somebody to check out because the country doesn't want to support the care that they need. I mean, like, that is just bananas.
Yeah, and do you know how bad it is? That the night before, so I had scheduled myself to die 3 times, okay? Each time I went there, and I was crying profusely. I was losing my mind. I was telling these people, why? Why do I have to do this? Like, this is... Basically. I mean, I was, using big boy language. And, and I was... they were watching this, and I was sitting there for hours, and I just couldn't hit it. I couldn't do it. And I mean, the last time is when I came the closest, because I actually put my own hand on the syringe, and I, had my finger pressed against it, right? All I had to do was push it, and I'm dead, But the night before, I get a call on my phone from the Deputy Minister of Health of British Columbia. And he says to me, Mr. Stephen Brown, he is now retired. He's no longer the deputy. He says to me, Mitch, please don't die. I don't want you to die. What I got from that conversation was he did not want my blood on his hands. So it got up to him after the second time. It got up to him that I was going to kill myself. And he says to me, please come to Victoria. Please come to Victoria. Come with your partner. Come to Victoria. Come with your caregiver. I don't care who you bring. I want to talk to you. I want to make this work. I show up in Victoria and they say to me, okay, Mitch, what do you want? How do we make this stop? So I tell them what I want. I want 24-hour care. I want, massage 3 times a week. I want chiro. I want physio. Okay, Mitch. Done. Signed. Within 3 weeks, I had a signed letter of support saying we're guaranteeing this therapy for the next 2 years, and you now have 24/7 care. And I wasn't going to come on here and I wasn't going to say that because I also want to protect my own interest and I have to protect my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to protect what I do receive, but I need people to know that it took me sitting in that chair multiple times for the word to get to the right person. Because first I wrote a letter to my MLA saying, this is crazy. Our disability is $1,000 a month. But meanwhile, the government admitted during COVID, people need at least $2,000 by CERB. So why is our disability community getting less than CERB? Right? That's insane. But that's what it took. It took me sitting in that chair. It took years of struggle. It took opioid addiction. It took all these things to finally get what I needed, to finally get what I asked for. Mm-hmm. So if they were going to give it to me in the end, why just not give it to people now?
Does it feel like kind of shitty in a way that it took putting your life on the line, multiple times to be able to get care? And do you feel like, oh, they'll do this for me when I'm willing to be in this extreme of a situation, yet not everybody has access to this?
Yeah, so I do feel like guilt because I know that there's people today that are sitting in their own feces for 14 hours because they don't have enough care, or they haven't ate today, or they haven't got out of bed. So I feel guilty, right? I feel sadness. And part of me, again, just needs people to know that happens. Because when you speak, you can have action. When you act, you can have action. But there's a problem. The problem with the disability community is we are not like the LGBT community. Sorry, I'm not getting the acronym right. People don't come for me. I'm not getting it right. It always
He's
changes.
got cerebral palsy, guys. Just give that guy a break, okay?
Right. But anyways, and when people fought for gay rights, they did it together, right? Togetherness. They were one. They went and they fought for their rights. The problem that I see is two-pronged in the disability community. You have people that are scared to fight for more because they don't want to lose what they have, because what they have is so little. So they feel like if I fight, I'm going to lose what I have, which can be the furthest thing from the truth, because we don't live in a communist country or dictator country where they can just take away what you have. Like, that's not legal in Canadian law. They couldn't do that to you, first of all. So people have that perception. The second thing is the disability community does not fight together, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. We don't fight together. People in wheelchairs fight together. People that are blind fight together. People that are deaf fight together. They all, people with autism, the autism families, they all fight for their own needs. And they're all saying, me, I need help. No, what it needs to be, guys, is us. Us. And what makes us one is that we all have unique challenges compared to able-bodied people. That's it. We don't need to fight and say that my issues are more important than yours or my funding is more needed than yours. No. If we just came together and fought for each other, we would get a lot further. And that's my message to fellow Canadians with disabilities.
God damn, Mitch.
Man.
I mean, dude, you're just all of that. Everything you've said has just been just incredibly well put.
And you feel, and like you said, I know that you said you feel guilty, but from being able to spend this time with you, you know, like you've been through hell, and what you had to go through to get what sounds like the support and the care that you need is what you deserve. And it's what everybody else deserves too.
1,000%. It's like the 4-minute mile, you know, like you broke the 4-minute mile, and you've showed everybody else that it's possible. And hopefully that's, you know,
yeah.
What analogy for, you know,
I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was the worst, Brian.
I get the 4 miles in my chair. Come on. It's not good.
Oh, man.
I mean, it might have been a little bit tone deaf.
Yeah.
But,
4-minute mile. Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
but I get what you were trying to go for.
But hey,
I actually really have to go. I had a hard out 5 minutes ago, and I should have left when I really had to leave.
That's
Mitch,
your cue to get.
I gotta leave before you wrap up, but honestly, you're fucking amazing, and I feel really grateful that we got to chat.
Mitch, I've got a question for you. It's a two-parter that we typically ask our guests when we come to a close. The first part of the question, the two-part question, what would you say is the biggest thing that cerebral palsy has taken away from you?
I would say the biggest thing it's taken away from me is my ability to understand like what my life should look like. Because
What
I
would you say
have
is sorry, continue.
because I have like I have a kind of like my brain is split in two, right? I'm constantly reminded that, hey, this is what society or the world thinks your life should be, and this is what your heart wants, or this is what your mind wants. And so it's like a constant kind of push and pull analogy that happens.
What would you say is the biggest thing that it's given you?
Yeah. The biggest thing it's given me is my ability to use my voice and my ability to communicate. I don't think that if I wasn't in this scenario, I don't think my communication skills would be nearly as great. Because I realized from a young age that I need to know how to use my words, because I can't physically do what I want. So in order to do what I want or get what I want, I have to use my voice.
Well, dude, I am just beyond grateful that you were able to take time out of your day today to use your voice here on the podcast, because you're an ideal guest. You're a joy to talk to. You are full of insight and full of piss and vinegar, and to see you out there just fighting for what is deserved, fighting for what is right, and you know, I mean, you're a beacon of light, dude, and I really do hope that you're able to continue to fight for for the rights of yourself, but also others that are in a similar position to yourself. Thank you. Just thank you so much for coming on the show and having this conversation with us. And I really hope that this is not the last time that we get to have you on the show, because I just think this has been incredible, and I feel like we could do this for hours.
Yeah, there's so many chapters to go through with you guys, but there's one final thing I need to say. My final message to anyone listening that doesn't have a disability is my point of being here today is not to complain about having disability or complain about my life or the challenges I was given. But what I do want people to realize is at any moment, you can also become someone with a disability. Anything can happen to you tomorrow, and you will be in this scenario. And it begs the question, am I disabled or are you temporarily abled? Because at some point, if you live long enough, something may happen to you, or you're just going to get old and lose your ability to do the things that you used to do. So I want people to be very aware of the fact I'm not here to complain. I'm here to educate and realize that we can all become disabled in some way.
Thank you, Mitch. We love you, dude.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. We'll be in touch.